Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level. We're here because the news is being distorted. We're here because people are being inundated with misinformation on social media. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth. The beginnings of a trade agreement with China, new information on Iran's nuclear program, Trump to push down prices on prescription drugs, and more. Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's the news you need to know. The U.S. and China agreed to slash punishingly high tariffs on each other's goods, a major thaw in trade relations that resets the tone between the world's two largest economies from outright conflict to constructive engagement. After weekend talks in Geneva, President Trump's reciprocal tariff on China will fall to 10% from 125%. A separate 20% tariff the president imposed over what he described as China's role in the fentanyl trade will remain. Beijing will cut its retaliatory levies on U.S. goods to 10% from 125%. The U.S. said the reductions would last for 90 days while talks continue. The agreement lowered tariff levels more than Wall Street expected and came after just 2 days of talks. U.S. stock futures, which were higher ahead of the announcement, surged. That put the S&P 500 on course to open above where it stood on April 2nd when Trump's Liberation Day tariffs sent markets into a tailspin. New satellite images have revealed an alleged secret Iranian nuclear weapons facility that's been in operation for over a decade. The newly identified site, codenamed the Rainbow Site, is far from the nation's already known nuclear facilities. The Iranian government, which denies the claims, says the site is a chemical production factory. The allegations, including aerial photos, were made public by the National Council of Resistance of Iran, a group the Iranian government labels as a terrorist organization. The group says the site is heavily fortified with radar and air defense systems. The U.S. is currently in negotiations with Iran over its nuclear program. Last week, Vice President J.D. Vance said the talks remain on track. Chinese President Xi Jinping was photographed standing next to Vladimir Putin on Friday as thousands of Russian troops and military vehicles rumbled through Moscow's Red Square during the country's annual Victory Day parade. The event, marking Russia's 80th anniversary of the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II, featured over 11,500 troops and more than 180 military vehicles, including tanks, armored infantry vehicles, and artillery used on the battlefield in Ukraine. Drones that Russia has deployed in the war were also on display, according to Reuters. "We are proud of their courage and determination, their spiritual force that always has brought us victory," Putin said about the Russian troops fighting in the war. Russian flag carrier Aeroflot canceled more than 100 flights to and from Moscow and delayed over 40 others on Wednesday as the military were repelling repeated Ukrainian drone attacks on the capital. India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire after U.S.-led talks to end the most serious military confrontation between the nuclear-armed rivals in decades. The deal was expected to bring a swift end to weeks of escalating clashes, including missile and drone strikes, triggered by the massacre of tourists by gunmen last month that India blames on Pakistan, which denies the charge. Dozens of civilians have been killed on both sides since then, but multiple explosions were heard in two large cities of India-controlled Kashmir hours after the countries agreed to the deal. Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said late Saturday that there had been repeated violations of the understanding arrived between the two countries on ceasing fire and accused Pakistan of breaching the agreement. We call upon Pakistan to take appropriate steps to address these violations and deal with the situation with seriousness and responsibility, he said at a news conference in New Delhi. Misri said the Indian Army was retaliating for what he called a border intrusion. Ukrainian President Zelensky says he is ready to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin personally in Istanbul on Thursday for talks over ending the war. His post on X came shortly after Donald Trump demanded Ukraine agree to Putin's offer of direct talks between the two countries in Turkey. There is no point in prolonging the killings, and I will be waiting for Putin in Turkey on Thursday personally, Zelensky wrote. He had earlier said his country was open to talks with Russia, but only after a ceasefire was in place. Western powers called for a 30-day pause in fighting to begin on Monday after European leaders spearheading the so-called Coalition of the Willing met in Kiev on Saturday. Putin's offer of direct talks followed that intervention. Hamas claimed on Sunday that it would release American hostage Adam Alexander. Alexander, a dual U.S.-Israeli citizen, has been held captive in Gaza since the October 7th Hamas attack on southern Israel. As part of the efforts made by the brotherly mediators to achieve a ceasefire, Hamas has been in contact with the U.S. administration in recent days, a statement translated into English from Arabic from the terror organization said. The movement has shown a high level of positivity, and the Israeli soldier with dual American citizenship, Adan Alexander, will be released as part of the steps being taken toward a ceasefire, the opening of border crossings, and the entry of aid and relief for our people in the Gaza Strip, the statement continued. Newark Airport lost radar and radio contact with planes again. The air traffic controllers lost radar and communications connections to planes for 90 seconds at around 4 a.m. Friday, according to the Federal Aviation Administration. During Friday's outage, one controller told a FedEx pilot that radar screens were dark and urged the pilot to, quote, contact your airline and try to get some pressure from them to fix this stuff, unquote. The tech snafu delayed about a third of flights coming into the airport and caused about 10% of flights both in and out to be canceled. On Thursday, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy released a plan to update the air traffic control system, but said it would require billions of dollars from Congress. According to the FAA, a telecommunications issue at the Philadelphia TRACON Terminal Radar Approach Control Area C facility, which guides aircraft in and out of Newark, caused the agency to issue a 45-minute ground stop. The FAA briefly slowed aircraft in and out of the airport while we ensured redundancies were working as designed, the FAA said in its statement. Operations have returned to normal. Get real-time updates at www.fly.faa.gov. On Sunday afternoon, the FAA released updated information saying an audio issue, not an outage, prompted the ground stop at Newark. The agency said there were popping sounds on an unspecified number of radio frequencies. While air traffic controllers were able to communicate with aircraft, the radio system was not working correctly, prompting the switch to a backup system, the FAA said. President Trump announced his intention to bring down prescription costs. In a Sunday post to Truth Social, Trump said he would sign an executive order at 9 a.m. Monday to institute a most favored nation policy with pharmaceutical companies that he predicted could lower drug prices by 30% to 80%. The United States will pay the same price as the nation that pays the lowest price anywhere in the world, the president said in the post. While Americans pay more for pharmaceuticals than any other country, Bloomberg reported that the American market fuels innovation and drives growth in the industry. Drug makers have pushed back on previous efforts to revamp the system in the U.S., saying it would make revenues evaporate and hinder the development of potentially life-saving drugs. That's the Raw Naked Truth. You can catch every episode of the Raw Naked Truth Daily News Brief, as well as our sister podcast, Carnivore Radio, with news analysis and commentary, and the rest of the Xvadio Podcast Network at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.